Hi, this is Margaret Byrd and welcome to Color Quest. You are here with me today in the Pacific Northwest, but if you've been watching my channel, you know that last week we went on a foraging trip, and that was in Central Idaho. So that was part one, and this week's going to be part two, where we're going to continue to explore that region of the United States. And in today's video, we're going to look at birch and birch bark specifically to see what kinds of colors we can get from birch that we've foraged. So join me and let's go back into the Idaho landscape and see where we can find birch and maybe even pick up a few pine branches along the way. So thanks for being here. This is Margaret Byrd, and again, it's always wonderful for you to join me on my pursuit of natural color. Hey, I am here in Idaho this weekend and I am foraging for color. Now that is my kind of sign right there. And that's about what I have, is a little bit of mountain wanderlust.
This morning I am out. It's a little bit chilly, which it always is, and I am going to be heading out looking for more trees today, and I'm going to reference this book. This has become a little bit of my Bible of how to identify plants, not specifically how to identify them, but to know which plants to go for. And it's by Sasha Durr, and if you know anything about Di, you know that she's like a mainstay and an incredible wealth of knowledge. And this book has been so amazing for me to focus on where I should look for certain plants. So I'm going to sit here today and check out some things. I was in the pine forest yesterday, and I'm going to be looking for birch, which there's a lot of aspen here, and so I'm not entirely sure. I need to try to identify how to be able to differentiate birch and hopefully find some. So I'm heading off to the Big Wood River, and I'm gonna just spend my day along there to see what I can find. Hey, Tony.
Hey, what's up? Hey, today is vlogging day.
No way.
Wait till you see the birch.
Woohoo!
That's some shit.
Where are we going today, Tony?
Today?
Yeah.
We're heading north, young people.
So I'm here along the Big Wood River, where there are a lot of trees with white bark and a lot of golden leaves. But I think I may have found birch. Two identifying marks for birch is the leaf shape. The leaf shape is more heart-shaped as opposed to the aspen, which is really round. And the bark peels away. So although you don't remove it from the tree itself ever, I'm going to be looking for downed branches. I think I may have found some that have some peeling bark, and it's that birch bark that I'm looking for today. Let me tell you something, in the midst of a massive aspen area, I've been struggling. I'll show you the aspen leaves after, because they're everywhere and they're really obvious because they're round. But let me go show you the bark itself. So the bark, these sort of lines that go across, these horizontal lines, are an identifier of birch, as well as the leaves, which are, as I said, they're more heart-shaped, whereas aspen are round. So in kind of poking around this area, I decided to look for bark that was on the ground. So we'll check that out. This pretty decent sized branch on the ground, so it's broken off. And as I went to look at it, I noticed that the bark was peeling off. What I think I'm gonna do is take some of these smaller branches that have also fallen from wind and whatnot and see about harvesting the bark from these small pieces here. And I'm hoping that from being able to do that, I'll be able to collect enough bark to be able to test out the color when I get home. I found a few branches and I've pretty easily pulled off the bark. So I'm gonna just show you some of the bark pieces. These are pretty old. I'm not entirely sure if they're gonna produce color or not. But if you look at this piece I've pulled, you can see that I can just very gently remove the bark. And I will be taking this with me to see. I mean, really, the pieces are just sort of falling off. And these were just from sticks and branches that had fallen from wind and weather. I'm going to bring you down here to the Big Wood River and let you see that. Yeah, the water's low. I was here a year ago and I would have been already standing in the water. Still really pretty. We are actually next to an aspen tree. And interestingly enough, they also have these marks. But if you look at the leaves up here, you can see the leaves are more round. Very different from the other leaves. And a sort of greenish yellowish hue to the white is another marker. Sometimes I can see it, sometimes not so much. But definitely these guys are the beauty of aspen. Next to my aspen trees, I have a pine tree. So going back to that needle, you can see that they're coming out of a woody extrusion, and then there's, in this case, there's 2 needles coming. Super soft. You can always see them like on the ground. You know, you'll see that sort of quintessential forested, you know, pine needles. And here we have some cones as well. There's not a bad cone that you can see. They're really tight and hard. The pine has a very specific whispering pine sound in the wind, and I could hear it between that and the aspen. Sounds really nice. Just noticed as what happens when you're sort of walking through high brush is that I got attacked by a very sticky plant that's now all over my pants. I'll show you. Yikes. So I'm gonna have to pick all of these off as I was busy looking for pine needles. I must have made my way through something very sticky. All right, picked them all off. Woo, took forever. Actually, I was thinking about, I'm really glad I don't have a dog right now, because that would suck to have to try to pick all those out of a dog's fur. And you know, dogs everywhere out here are getting that kind of stuff in their fur all the time. So I'm back in my neighborhood, and I decided to go out just in my neighborhood now to look for pine, because I wanted to collect some pine branches. So just walking in my neighborhood, I came across this really beautiful pine, and you can see how it's got the double grouped pine needles. There's 2 at each one, which means, if I'm thinking correctly, it's a red pine. Really pretty. So here we are just outside of Mountain Home. We've dropped back down onto the high desert prairie land. And something that struck me the whole time that we were down here were these incredible sage, wild sage. They're everywhere. And it's October. And the fact that they're in full bloom, I mean, I'm talking fields and fields and fields of them. I've been watching them, and even though this trip was around collecting things from the forest of the Boulder Mountains, this was definitely something I wanted to share. I am going to take sampling of a few of these and take them back. I know sage absolutely makes a beautiful green color. I'm curious to see if these flowers do the same, or maybe not green, but produce a color. So I will do the ethical foraging. I'll take a handful from a few different plants across here. I've noticed they've been filled with bees, so obviously it's a pollinating plant, which is critically important. And I don't want to take very much, just the handful rule, and I'll bring it back and see what kind of color I can make. always amazed at the variety of colors or shades of color that you can get from one dye material. And although Birch brings us a fairly neutral palette, it's fairly remarkable how you can change the color that you get even slightly by making differences within your dye studio. Things like different textile, different mordant processes, how long you soak something, shifts that you do pre and post dyeing. So my hope is that by taking one thing that you decide to use as a dye matter and experiment and see what different kinds of colors or shades or tones that you can get within one, it's really opens up the possibilities of being able to widen your color palette. It truly is a level of alchemy involved and a whole lot of play and experimentation. So I hope you enjoyed seeing a few different options in how you might be able to adjust color. Remember too that different dye matter will change based upon how old it is or the type of plant that it is within its own plant species, and where you picked it up, the environment it grows in. All these things make an impact on color. So next time on Color Quest, I will be testing out some pine branches. And yes, I did collect them while I was in Idaho, but I didn't film the collection of the branches themselves. So we'll just go right into the studio and see what third set of colors we can get from the Idaho landscape in the form of pine branches. And if you haven't seen the videos on how to shift color and modify color with iron water, go ahead and check out how to make it yourself and how to use it in a few other videos that I've shown it, as well as mordant with alum or tannin, both of which have been individual videos on this channel. So take a poke around, see how you can do these variations in order to experiment and just really play around with the power of natural color.